Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here with the last and final episode of the WWE Unreal. This was episode 5 entitled Wrestlemania, which was the finale to a lot of storylines that they ran throughout WWE through the first 4 episodes. It was leading up to big matches following the superstars, mostly Jey Uso winning his first championship at WrestleMania 41, no longer being known as a tag team wrestler, but breaking off and being a singles guy against Gunther. Tiffany versus Charlotte for the WWE Championship. CM Punk versus Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns. We had Rhea Ripley going up in a three-way with Bianca and Io Sky. And then John Cena versus Cody Rhodes for the WWE, I almost said European, the undisputed WWE Championship. All of these matches make up WrestleMania, which they build up each and every year. All of these had different storylines. Like I said, Jay, getting his first main event push as a singles guy after winning the Royal Rumble and then winning the World Heavyweight Championship, breaking away from being a tag team wrestler from the Usos, which were like 10 years ago, were looked at as guys that could have good matches but didn't really get good storylines. So their matches were kind of like on a pay-per-view. Tiffany versus Charlotte involves, Charlotte doing the job and putting somebody over and making somebody look good. And even though it's on the grandest stage of WrestleMania, making yourself look good even when you don't win, and, creating the star of tomorrow like somebody did for her, when she was first getting established, right? Which I guess would be like Nikki Bella, because when she first was establishing herself, most often it was against like Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch. But remembering who got you there. CM Punk's story was him getting to his first main event, and you wouldn't really know, like, by thinking of CM Punk, how emotional he would get before going out. CM Punk looked like a wreck in the backstage, and like Triple H had to grab him and basically like bring him back to earth and say, like, you're CM Punk, you need to go out there and you need to fucking be CM Punk and show them who you are, and that's why you're here. Rhea Ripley, I don't really know what the story of the Rhea Ripley match was, but, it was 2 storyline people that they were following throughout the whole documentary. Io Sky just kind of like popped up out of the middle of nowhere. They didn't follow her. They didn't talk to her. Just all of a sudden, they're just like, hey, we had a decision that Rhea Ripley was going to lose the championship on the road to WrestleMania, which was going to set up a 3-way. And, that's where they get from there. And then, of course, Cena versus Cody. And there's a whole bunch of storylines there. Cody Rhodes was featured on the storyline, but, but it was almost like when they were talking about in episode 1, what are we going to do with Cody on the Raw debut on Netflix? Like, we got to make him look like a big deal. And they ended up just putting him in the crowd for The Rock to talk to and kill that storyline. And The Rock and Cody are in the back taking drinks of vodka and taking drinks of tequila before The Rock jumped in his truck and drove away from the arena that night. It happened. It's almost like he wasn't the biggest deal of this documentary. He was in it, but he just wasn't the main guy. And it almost got me starting to think, like, Cody's role, is he really the main guy in the in the company, or are they just trying to count down until they get the next guy, whether they're in NXT or whether they're already on the main roster and they're trying to make sure that they get to there. But I'll tell you this much. Episode 5 was a really good ending to this documentary, but it left me wanting more. And it was not really suspenseful, because as a wrestling fan, we all watched WrestleMania, and we might have missed little things that happened on the road to WrestleMania, whether even if it was in the Rumble or the Elimination Chamber match itself. But I think we all know who won all of these matches. We weren't going to be surprised. So that was only the kind of like downfall of this being the last episode, because it left me wanting more. But we start the episode in Belgium. It was the first time seeing John Cena since the Elimination Chamber, because I believe he was filming a movie around the same time. And he was going to be on all of the major shows. He just wasn't going to be on all of them. So we had to wait this long until we got Cena's response of why he did what he did. And we're also on the road to him already having a title shot to fight against Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania in the biggest match of the year. They had Jey Uso. I felt like that was, at the time, was a storyline that they were building on Raw. The documentary made it feel like it was happening in real life. I wonder if they did it for the documentary in like one of these like kind of like Total Divas storylines, that they needed to have a storyline for this match on this documentary. So that's why they had Jey messing up in his promos, getting winded in his matches, missing his dive over the top rope on Monday Night Raw, because they all pulled that together in the storyline and used it to get him even more over than he was by admitting his faults. And I really thought it was really cool. We pick up that Charlotte had won the Royal Rumble, so she got to pick what competitor she went after, and she decided that she was going to go after Tiffany and the SmackDown Women's Championship. The Roman versus Seth versus Punk storyline was talked about in the booking room, and it basically was just ran down as Punk should win. But this whole storyline of, is Heyman going to turn? Is he going to stay with Punk? Is he going to turn against him? But everybody thought the biggest storyline of them all was CM Punk main eventing his first WrestleMania. Somehow we are at the day of WrestleMania, or at least the day before, and we see a lot of work getting done in the ring. But we see Kofi Kingston, I believe it was Ivar. We see CM Punk. We see Adam Pearce, all on the outside having a discussion about, shitting in the ring. We all know the famous story of the CM Punk was not feeling really well, and he was having a match with the Shield's Dean Ambrose on SmackDown, and Punk just went bananas in his trunks. I believe he talked about this on The Art of Wrestling with Colt Cabana, the podcast that came out on Thanksgiving years ago, I think is where the story was first told. But CM Punk, looked into the ring and saw Charlotte, and basically was asking if she had the same problems in her career, and it looked like she wanted to be anywhere else other than this discussion. But she did at least throw in there that she peed a little one time when Asuka suplexed her out of the ring down to the floor. And I think she said she drizzled a little bit. So it was not a full pee. It was just a little bit came out. Same thing that happened to Chelsea when she was trying the leg drop in episode 3 for Saturday night's main event. Once we get, down to business, they're giving us really quick, this is what happened at WrestleMania. Like, they're showing us the highlights of the matches. Jey gets his yeet on. He wins his first title. We see the backstage moment of Triple H grabbing him and telling him, like, this is, the start of a brighter future. This is because of what you did in the past. Sorry about that. the kids came home, so I had to take a break. I don't really take breaks in videos. These last 2 reviews have just been bananas. Tiffany versus Charlotte. Once they got into the ring, they were concerned because it looked like Tiffany lost some teeth. She definitely had some blood at her lower teeth. I love the fact that once the match was over and they came in the back, Triple H told Charlotte that's exactly how you put somebody over. And when they put the camera in Charlotte's face and asked her, like, what are you going to do next? She said that she got to figure it out how to climb the mountain again. I don't think we're at a point that we are transitioning out of Charlotte. She hasn't been on the main roster yet for 10 years. Her first WrestleMania was WrestleMania 32. She has had the 2 knee injuries, but I think there's still a lot of left in that tank. And the fact that she's, in a tag team with Alexa Bliss right now, I don't think that we are winding it down. I think that definitely there's a lot to move from there. But it is good that she still has the fire in her to get back to where she was. The main event of night 1 was Punk versus Seth Rollins versus Roman. We've talked about this already. It was Punk's first WrestleMania main event. Most people think that that's one of the main reasons why he left WWE, that he was not going to be in the main event of WrestleMania 30. He did not think that wrestling against Triple H was going to do him any good. He didn't think that wrestling against Kane was going to be any better. But I was really surprised that, like, he is at the gorilla position, go out for this. I thought that he would be like gung-ho, but that dude had tears in his eyes, and he's just, they probably remembering like everything that he went through to get to there, thinking of leaving WWE, thinking of going to TNA, thinking about being fired from TNA. I said TNA, AEW, I apologize. And then of course he, comes back to WWE to, get close, and he gets injured, and he has to fight back from that injury, and then he'll get in this spot again. I'm not the biggest one who thinks that main eventing night 1 of WrestleMania is main eventing WrestleMania. I know that it's a cherished spot. I know that, like, you can say, like, Bam Bam Bigelow main evented WrestleMania, and like, I don't know, but it is special to certain people to be looked at as some of the biggest stars on the brightest stage, and you're the one person that's either leaving them happy or killing their dreams of being the heel who wins in that spot. But story of this honestly is Paul Heyman's chair shot. Of him going and getting the chair, bringing it in the ring. It looks like Roman is going to use it against Seth, only for, Heyman to low blow, Roman Reigns, and, Seth run out of there as the victor. I would have loved, as a build-up and a point to season 2, them covering the night after WrestleMania, which would have been great because the ending of Triple H riding in the car, and you can see the lights of Vegas behind him as he rides back to the Fontainebleau, having to talk about them doing it all again tomorrow. Because if you would have thought of like what the next episode could have been, I mean, they could have put Braun Breaker on the big stage and basically said like, hey, you're getting the push of a lifetime. You're getting stepped up. You might have lost the Intercontinental Championship, but that's small town bananas now for you. You're going to be in the world title picture. You're going to be messing around with Seth Rollins being the muscle. You're going to be the Kevin Nash to the Shawn Michaels. And we're going to start building you from there. It really felt like it was the end. And I know that I have been watching wrestling, that I've seen 2-night WrestleManias. This was the first one that I've been to. But I just kept thinking, like, what it must have meant. I believe the first night they went 2-night WrestleManias was WrestleMania 36. But that was all, like, pre-produced stuff. They didn't really do it live. So WrestleMania 37, I think they did 2 nights. And that was in Tampa. And what they would have felt the first night it ended, I don't remember what main evented 37 second night. I really don't remember. I was watching at that time, but I honestly just did not care, God honest truth. But if they felt like, damn, we knocked it out of the park, and then realized, like, oh, shoot, we have this show again tomorrow, and it's got to be bigger, and it's got to be better. Michael Hayes was talked about how the best quote of the whole deal, God really likes wrestling. Because he's saying that he's not smart enough to come up with the smartest ideas that is coming out of his head. I really felt like it was the end of the show, and then I realized that we got to come back for night 2. They give us Rhea Ripley. They just threw in this line like, "Hey, Rhea lost her title on the way to WrestleMania to Io Sky to set up it being a 3-way. Io wins that match." And we don't even really get anything on it. I mean, we have Rhea getting consoled by Triple H in the back to get out of her head and block everything out, trying to console her that, she is the best to do this. I think that she's one of the most heavily pushed women that have been in WWE. The only person that would rival it is China, because as of right now, I think we know that Rhea could kick, Dom's ass. I really thought they were building towards Rhea versus Dom for WrestleMania at one point. But, China was looked at as like she could fight the dudes. And I'm not talking about that Intercontinental title run. I'm talking about when she was the muscle for DX. She was looked at as somebody that, like, even the main eventers were like, hey, I don't want to mess with that. That's just the way it's going to be. Cena versus Cody for the undisputed WWE Championship. They knew they had him from the moment that match started. It was so fun to watch that. To see the 10 spot where Cody didn't have a referee, but he had Cena pinned, and at that spot, they brought out Travis Scott, and then Cody was able to get his retribution from the Elimination Chamber by hitting Travis Scott with the Crossroads, but of course, Cena was able to hit Cody with the belt when Cody wouldn't do it himself, and Cena walked out the championship. They basically went to Triple H sitting in the car. It was a lot like how, I honestly thought it was a lot like how the Vince McMahon documentary ended, with them leaving AT&T Stadium in the helicopter, and pulling away from WrestleMania, only he was in the back of I don't know, probably an Escalade or something like that, and they were driving, and you can see the lights of Vegas with the casinos as they pass, and, basically saying there's no off season. We basically got to go home and we got to write Monday Night Raw. And we do this all again tomorrow. It's a never-ending deal. And I don't know. I honestly hope we don't have to wait a whole year until we see WWE Unreal Season 2. But this was a damn good show. Damn good show. Knocked it out of the park, WWE.